All right. Hi, everyone. Welcome to another edition of Profiles in Ink. My name is Bill Soroka, author of Sign and Thrive, How to Make Six Figures as a Mobile Notary and Loan Signing Agent, and founder of Notary Business Builder. I love doing these interviews, and I'm excited to introduce you to Jane Wenning. She's a health coach or health mentor who's spent the last 20 years helping her clients in their physical and mental health. Jane, welcome to Profiles in Ink.
Great. Thank you for having me, Bill.
I've loved our conversation. You were just recently on my podcast as well. I love the passion that you bring to this. And guys, Jane gets our life. She knows what it's like to live out of your car. So that's what we get to talk about today, is staying healthy while you live and work out of your car. Jane,
Yes.
I can't wait to hear your story. How do you relate to this?
Okay. So like you said, so first of all, I didn't live out of my car. I just worked out of my car. Big difference.
Yeah, huge difference.
About 20 years ago, I started helping women look younger, feel better, and have more energy. And at that same time, I was preparing for a bodybuilding competition. And I was also rehabbing properties across. I live in Minnesota, and across the Twin Cities, I was rehabbing properties. So I would be in my vehicle from the time I dropped my kids off at school until I got home in the evening to make dinner. And so I was officing out of my car every day. I was on the go. But here's the thing. I was also training for this bodybuilding competition. So I had to be very, very mindful of what I ate. I had to be mindful of how much hydration I had. I had to be mindful of how do I not become sloth-like because I am sitting in my car all day. What things do I do in that regard? The emotional energy part, because as you know, when you are driving through traffic, boy, it's stressful. So how do you deal with that and getting to appointments on time and all of that stuff? And then on top of it, that recovery piece. So I really know where your people are coming from when they office out of their cars all day.
It can be really stressful. You don't even realize how stressful it is sometimes until you get home, and you almost have to peel your hands off the steering wheel. And you're like, oh my gosh, I've been in the car all day long. But we really struggle when we're out, especially when we're in full hustle mode and we're out there running from appointment to appointment. The easiest food to get is sometimes the unhealthiest food. So it's a trap that I think so many of us fall into. And then we're just sitting so still inside the car. But on top of that too, there's budgetary constraints, right? Because the unhealthiest food is cheap and easy to get. So how do we overcome that, Jane?
Okay. So the first thing that I would suggest for your audience is that they get themselves a little soft-sided cooler. This one is square. I don't at the time anymore, but I had round, they were like food trays that would go in they would fit right in there, but they were partitioned into 3 parts. So I could put my protein in one, my starch in another, and then load up another one with the vegetables. So that was a super handy. And then you can just tuck your ice packs in around that. And then you've got your food partitioned out, because here's the thing that I know, Bill, that when you get home and you haven't eaten all day, you will start grabbing the craziest things to eat. And that's where you can maybe be on point all day and feel like, oh, well, when I went to a Chick-fil-A, I just had the chicken breast and I didn't eat the bread, and whatever it might be. But then you get home because you have not had enough calories and you are fit to be tied. It's not a good place to be. So to stay in a budget, buy and make yourself, because that way you have control over your food. Focus on the protein, because protein is so, it's satiating, and it's also thermodynamic. So it takes more energy to burn off protein than to burn off pasta or even vegetables. So protein is really, really key. And then one of the things that I do now when I'm out and about traveling, I'm not out and about for that length of time anymore. But I still travel with my cooler, but now I have, okay, so this is my vegetable bucket. And
It's a huge bucket.
I fill my this has probably got 8 different kinds of vegetables in. I fill that up and that just gets put into my cooler in the morning with a couple servings of protein. And I put my servings of protein in glass
Like a
Tupperware.
Pyrex or something. Yeah.
Yep. And then that way I can have a little bit of protein and then I can just munch on my vegetables. And it'll take me 2 days to clean that bucket out.
Okay, I was going to ask you if that is a day's worth of vegetables. I am way
No,
behind.
well, you know what? Here's the thing. If I'm in my car for a long time, sometimes it doesn't last me 2 days. Sometimes it might just, I mean, because what would you rather? Well, I wouldn't say what would you rather eat, but if you don't have chips or cookies in your car and you've got your vegetables, they're a great thing to just munch on while you're, driving between appointments. And the other thing I'll tell you quickly is get yourself a water bottle. Now, the blue plastic is still plastic. Don't fool yourself, but it's not going to have all the chemicals of some of the other plastics. So I fill that up in the morning. That goes in my vehicle, and then every time I stop, I can fill up the thermos that sits right up by my driver's seat.
Right, something like this that you just transfer
Yes.
that water
Yep, my
into
hydro.
something like
Yep.
this. Okay,
Yep.
all right. Excellent tips. And one of the things that you are that I really loved about your teaching and the framework that you provide is your 4 pillars of health system. So how do we take those 4 pillars and apply it to our life on the road?
Okay, so I just touched on the nutrition one. I'm going to go back. The first pillar that I have is recovery, because recovery really affects all the other pillars. If you are not sleeping at night or sleeping well at night, getting quality or quantity sleep, you are not going to have the bandwidth to deal with stress on the road or stressful people that you have to come in contact with.
There's plenty of those.
If you've had a good night's sleep, you can deal with those situations a lot easier. If you don't have enough sleep, you are more likely to start reaching for the highly processed foods because your body didn't get the energy that it needed through recovery. So now it's looking for energy in all the wrong places.
So Jane, if somebody that's listening right now just struggles with getting a good night's sleep, what are some tips you have right now that they could try and see if that affects the quality of their sleep?
Okay, so there's a couple things really quickly. They can go on my website, first of all, and there's a free download, and I've got a bunch of tips on there that they can incorporate. But setting a routine bedtime is it's a huge key. It's called sleep hygiene. And so setting your bedtime, setting your wake up time, and having those times not deviate by more than an hour. Even on the weekends, you want to stay really close to those times. And what I found for my clients, the easiest way to get into a good sleep routine is to reverse engineer your bedtime. I mean, it sounds so simple that it can't possibly work, but when you make things simple, when changes are simple and not dramatic, that's when they work because they're easy to incorporate then. So what I have people do, if you want to be in bed by 9:30 and you know that, okay, I want to brush my teeth and shower, do whatever your things are before bedtime. So then you have an alarm clock, an alarm on your phone then that goes off at 9 o'clock. If you know that sleep routine is going to take you a half hour, your alarm goes off at 9 o'clock. But if your people are anything like me, you're not just sitting around waiting for your alarm to go off. You are doing a bunch of different things. So I have another alarm that goes off on my phone 15 minutes before that. So that's my warning. Hey, whatever you are doing, you got to wrap it up. You got 15 minutes until you get to a hard stop. And at that hard stop, it's just like, all right, that's it. This is my hard stop. I have to get ready for bed. So It sounds really silly. And I have a little sheet of paper that people can kind of play around with that and then make notes. Did it work? Didn't it work? What do I need to modify? Because that's important. When you monitor something, you can manage it. If you just do this willy-nilly, you don't know what thing jumped in the way and caused you to go to bed late. So then you wake up late and then you're surly and, the whole thing. So making notes and understanding how, and if you're somebody that routinely goes to bed at 11 o'clock or midnight, and you want to start bumping your bedtime earlier, then having a chart and knowing what are some of the things that jump in there and keep you from going to bed at a more reasonable time are super important.
Yeah, that's one of the things I really appreciate about you is that you advocate the monitoring and the data so you can kind of see what's happening. And what I've learned about myself is that I often think things are a certain way. I often think that I'm a morning routine person or I'm a great sleeper. And then when you look at the data, sometimes you're like, oh, wait, I haven't meditated in 3 weeks. So am I a meditator or not a meditator, right?
Right.
Or do I get quality sleep? I love the aura ring that we talked about on the podcast.
Yeah.
You can see, oh, maybe things aren't the way that I've decided they were once you get the data.
Yeah.
That's great. So I'm sorry, I kind of sidetracked you there on the recovery piece with the sleep. What about pillar 2?
Okay. So pillar 2 is emotional energy. When you are in your car, it can be very isolating. And then the people that you are dealing with are on the roads and they're crazy. So it's not a great scenario. So there's a couple things that I suggest. And then on top of that, you might be walking into a meeting where you are very uncertain of the clientele that you're going to meet. You're uncertain of how are they going to accept you? How is it going to go? The great thing about your car is it's private. You are right there. You can have some great affirming self-talks. You can take that rearview mirror down. You can look in that mirror. And you know what? Here's the greatest thing that I love to tell people to do. You know what? Before you walk into a meeting where you are a little bit uncertain, pull that mirror down, you look in it, and you give yourself a high five in that mirror and you say, I got this. I am going to rock this meeting. When you walk in with an attitude like that, you are going to rock it. If you walk in and you're like, oh God, I just don't know, you know what? You're not going to have that positive energy and that aura that you need to want people to work with you. So
Yeah. I love that advice because I mean, in our own heads, we can tear ourselves down or build ourselves up. And if we just sometimes that little nudge in the right direction just gives you that little um, flick in your step or just
right.
changes the whole energy of it. I love that.
So if you've been in your car and stuck in traffic and you're heated, that is a great time to pull that mirror down. Then when you get to where you're going, pull that mirror down and say, oh, that was just like the crappiest half hour ever. And then do that self-talk and be able to say, I need to switch gears right now. I need to let it go. I need to surrender that last half hour. And I am going to rock this next meeting.
It's so important to leave that behind, not drag that into the appointment with you too, because people can feel that.
Oh, for sure. Oh my gosh. You know what? Here's the scary thing. I think a lot of times people are more like animals than we give them credit for, because a dog can tell if you are friend or foe.
Yeah.
Your cat can tell you if you are friend or foe.
Always
So,
foe.
yes, always. And I think the same is with people and the energy and the aura we transmit. People can tell right away. Are you like me? Or are you energy? Are you, or am I going to back off?
Yeah. Yeah. So true. And in a relationship-based business, this could make or break your
Yes.
business.
Yes, for sure.
Excellent pointers there. And I know in pillar 3, we talked about the nutrition and
Yep.
having the vegetables. You know what? I keep thinking about that box of vegetables that you just pulled out. And it's hard to imagine, but I have to work on this too with my mindset and shifting to that. But what I love about that is I love how I feel after I eat vegetables,
Yeah.
and obviously protein too. So it would help avoid getting tired on the road, because sometimes when you grab one of those cheap snacks, then like 30 minutes later, I'm ready for a nap. I feel like I almost have to pull over and take a nap, but having those handy would help prevent that too.
Oh, absolutely. And that hangry feeling that people get.
Oh yeah.
And so then what they do? Then they might consume a whole lot of sugar. So then they're on this high and then they crash down. And it's when they're crashing down, that's when they need to be presenting. Not good.
Right.
So if you can keep your blood sugar stable by consuming protein and vegetables and healthy, good, healthy starches. I don't advocate following this diet plan or that diet plan. You have to listen to your body and feed your body what it needs. So if you are a carb eater, that's great. Eat carbs. You don't need to overdo it, because again, here's the big thing. You are sitting in your car. You are not burning off any carbs. And we'll get to that in the movement section. But you're not burning off any carbs. So you don't need to super load on them. You don't need to have cups and cups of starchy carbohydrates, because you are not moving your body.
That's a really good perspective. And I don't know. I didn't always think about this, about eating for energy. I usually just eat for whatever is sounding good, right? But if you shift that perspective to eating for energy, and you realize that you're not expending energy, so you don't have to replace those calories, that
No.
changes things.
Yes.
I have a question for you, and I hope this
Yeah.
doesn't veer you off course too much, but I had this thought the other day as I was driving, and I ate something I knew I should. Oh, I was checking into the hotel, and they had these free little candies. And of course I can't stop at one. So I had like 3 or 4 of them, and I felt great. But then I started to crash, and I'm like, oh gosh, I'm going to an appointment right now. I need to be up. Is there a way to recover from a sugar crash quickly when you've made the wrong decision?
Oh, that is a good question. I'm just trying to think of some of I would say it depends on the time of the day and definitely the person. There are things that you can mix into your water that will give you an instant boost of energy.
Mm.
I like, and some of the things that my husband, myself, and my adult children, one of them is called Boost, and it's got B12 in it. That's where it gets its energy from. It's got a little bit of natural caffeine, but mostly it's coming from the B vitamins. So that is a good one. And it's great because it flavors your water.
Okay.
So
All
that's
right.
a nice one. My husband likes Zip Fizz. It's also B vitamins. That one's got more caffeine.
Okay.
I can't deal with a lot of caffeine. So if I have that one, if I have any Zip Fizz after like noon, I can't sleep that night.
Gotcha.
I don't process caffeine well. And then I'm trying to think if there's any other. Yeah, sugar crashes. They're just hard.
It's terrible.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, if I have to go, I almost have to close my eyes. I have to get a nap, but then I feel even worse afterwards.
No,
So,
and
but I can
the
try
thing,
this.
yeah, the thing you have to be very careful of with a nap is the timing, because a nap is great, but if it's too long or too close to your sleep time, it can throw your sleep off.
Throw your whole rhythm off,
Yep,
for sure. And then sometimes it's not even an option, like when you're about to walk into an appointment, right?
right.
I have found that breathing can help bring me back, at
Yes,
least temporarily, up,
yes.
like get more oxygen in my brain or whatever it does. But it's not a longer term solution.
That's not going to be a long term fix, but that's at least going to wake you up enough to get you through that meeting. And again, on my website, on that download, I have some breathing techniques as well.
Great. Would you give people your domain? I'll of course put it in the show notes for
Yeah,
everybody,
for
but say
sure.
it for those who might be driving and listening and can't see the notes.
Okay, so it's www.the4- pillarshealth.com. So
Fourpillarshealth.com.
Yep, PILLARSHEALTH.com.
Perfect. And of course, guys, I'll have that in the show notes so you can just click into it too when you're at a position where you can do that. Which brings us to the fourth pillar.
Yep, movement.
Movement.
Yes.
How do we incorporate movement into our daily life?
Oh my gosh. So it's when you're planning your meetings, sometimes you can incorporate it, sometimes you can't. But if you allow yourself even a 10-minute window before you get to your meeting, once you arrive at your meeting, to be able to park and walk around and go over that meeting in your head, that's going to do two things. It's going to put you in a power position because you feel like you've just had that meeting. And then secondly, you are out and you're walking and you are all these positive endorphins that you get when you move your body, they're all coming out right now. So you're getting some steps in, you're getting some fresh air in, and you're putting yourself in a power position to go into that meeting. You know what, Bill? I don't know what happened, but I cannot hear you. Nope.
Well, I love that perspective. I love that idea of doing the vision and envisioning the appointment before you show up. Because in the sports world, that's pretty commonplace, right? They picture the shot, they picture the game, they picture the swing ahead of time. And once you picture it in your head, there's some science behind letting the body flow right into it. It's almost you probably might know this even more than I do, but there's been those studies with the basketball players who actually took shots and some of the ones who envisioned themselves taking shots. And there was very little difference between that.
Visualization is a very, very powerful technique. It reinforces this positive thing in your brain that you want to happen. And I know we touched on the reticular activating system before and how things that are important to you, your brain likes to solve problems. So when you tell your brain something and your brain is going to make that come to fruition. So and that's why it's really important to tamp down the critical self-talk, because when you say, I am such a dummy, I can't do anything right, your brain will think that that's what's important, and it will start looking for opportunities to prove you right. Now, if you keep things in the positive and you visualize in the positive how well things are going to go, your brain will look for opportunities to make that event go well.
I think that is so true. And you look, there are some people that show up to this world and everything just seems to unfold for them perfectly. And they expect that it does unfold for them perfectly. And I think this is a perfect evidence of that. Every now and then things might not go according to plan, right? But for the most part, they have overwhelming evidence that life is unfolding in their favor. And then there's, on the opposite end of that, there are, just like you said, people who say, I'm a dummy, or I'm an idiot, I'm a klutz, or nothing ever works out for me. They constantly get evidence that that is true.
Yes. Yep.
Powerful stuff. And I love too the idea of showing up to an appointment early. I'm a huge advocate for building in a time cushion. I can't stand to be late. So I will build in 15 minutes, 30 minutes, or whatever it might be. But I'm usually still sitting in my car, working, answering emails, sending invoices, or whatever it might be. But I love this idea of showing up early and taking a little walk. Maybe not when it's 120 degrees out here in Phoenix, but I can
No,
find a mall or an office
right.
building, right?
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was my other suggestion. When it's bad weather, bad being cold here in the upper Midwest or being very warm in the Southwest, find an enclosed mall or whatever it is and go for a walk in there. You can do some great power walking when you're in the mall. And you know what? And that could be a great thing if, I mean, your client, all your people have got their day mapped out. It's not like all of a sudden in 2 seconds, in 2 minutes, somebody's going to, they're not Lyft drivers. They're not getting dinged and, for the most part saying, hey, I need you here in 5 minutes. That way, maybe they can schedule, especially if they know that this is going to be a particularly tough appointment. They might be going by a mall. Schedule some time. Give yourself that gift and schedule some time to do a couple laps in the mall. You will feel so much better. And yeah, leave the wallet in the car.
No gas stations, right? No gas stations.
There you go.
This reminds me, one of my philosophies on life, and one of the reasons that I started enjoying this business even more, especially when it started to get kind of monotonous, because when you are on the road and it's appointment after appointment after appointment, it can grind on you a little bit without shifting your perspective, without finding the adventure. So right. I started finding the adventure in my day. And when you think about it, almost all of us live in a place where other people come to visit for some reason. You got these tourists that come in to check out. We're in the Grand Canyon state over here. We've got pueblos, we've got Indian ruins, we've got all kinds of cool stuff, mountains to hike. So when I started appreciating that more, I could build those little stops in and take a mini hike. I always carry that extra pair of shoes, so I could take up those hikes and walks. And I think that has been kind of the key to finding some extra enjoyment in this business. So that would be a great idea too.
That is a great idea. I love that.
Yeah. There's adventure everywhere.
Yes.
I live for it. Jane, any closing remarks that you have for our audience as they build their empires from their car?
Yes. You know what? Make small, and we talked about it before. You don't have to be dramatic with your changes. You don't have to start with a bucket of vegetables like this, and definitely don't, if you haven't eaten raw vegetables in any quantity in a long time, start slowly, because you have to develop the bacteria in your gut to digest them. Otherwise, you are going to have a lot of digestive issues. So start slowly with your vegetables. And all the changes that you make, whether it's sleep, whether it's taking time to breathe, you don't have to take 15 minutes to breathe. Start with 2 or 3 minutes, because the more dramatic you make a change, the less likely it is that you are going to be able to keep that. If somebody is going to start walking around the mall and to say, oh, I'm going to stop and do 45 minutes of walking in the mall, that's not sustainable. Start with, here's a great park. I'm going to stop here. I'm going to eat my vegetables and I'm going to go on a 10-minute walk. That is sustainable.
Yeah, you can always add extra minutes or even take them away if you find like it's not quite the right fit. You can scale it to any version you want. I love that, Jane.
But if you start with it being so monstrous right off the bat, chances are you're not going to come back and revisit that.
So true. Jane Wenning, thank you so much for giving so much of your time to our notary community. It's truly appreciated. This subject is so important. Guys, we're building a business that we absolutely love, probably because it affords the lifestyle where we can do more things with the people that we love doing it with. We've got to have our health. as we do that. And Jane, I truly appreciate you bringing your wisdom to our audience.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Bill. I really appreciate your time.